and sound. Since Augustine intended his confessions be read aloud, this attention to euphony gave Sheed's translation a unique strength. To this day it remains the most canorous and resonant on the market. Perhaps it is Sheed's unusual background that made him such a felicitous translator of St. Augustine. Like Augustine, Sheed had a rounder of a father and a moniker of a mother. Like Augustine, he was schooled in the manipulation of words and arguments, if one wishes to give the practice of law a rather cynical definition. Like Augustine, he had taught at a prestigious grammar school and was blessed with an incredible memory. Like Augustine, he was a convert to Catholicism, and, like Augustine, he spent the rest of his life dedicating his tongue to the greater glory of God and his Church. But the more relevant affinity again draws us back to the crucible of language. As the Australia of Sheed's youth began to feel its British identity slip away, it responded with both originality and conservation. Originality in its fostering of the spirit of national independence, conservation in its efforts to preserve all good things from its colonial founding. Subsequently, it was not uncommon to find Australians acting more English than their distant and now titular monarch. The fruit of this phenomenon was, among other things, a care for linguistic purism that surpassed even that of the mother country. Sheed, the drifter from the outback, was probably more exacting in his grammar and usage than most Chelsea headmasters. Interestingly, something similar can be said of the linguistic formation of Augustine, who was likewise reared in an imperial outskirt that looked across the sea for its bearings. An outskirt not wanting, Augustine winces to tell us in the Confessions, in punctilious grammarians and rhetoricians. Hence, Augustine remarks elsewhere that when he was in Italy, the locals grimaced at his North African accent, while he poked fun at their bad grammar. Both Sheed and Augustine, it seems, were outsiders to the ring that unified their world, and their only ticket in was impeccable speech. Yet from this pressure emerged a gracefulness with words, a loving facility with language, and a rare ability to fuse or transcend different cultural clusters of sign and meaning. In Augustine's case, the combination of writing from the end of the Latin corridor with his own ability to preserve apostolic tradition in a bold and even novel way helped to make the Confessions groundbreaking not only philosophically and theologically, but linguistically as well, pushing the conventions of classical Latin to their breaking point to effect a new synthesis of Ciceronian, biblical, and late Latin. One of the elements of Sheed's own linguistic style that requires some explanation today is his use of the word thou. In contrast to the Rococo translations of the 19th century, Sheed employed the antiquated pronoun sparingly, using it only when it was clear that Augustine was addressing God in straight prayer. As Sheed mentions in the original translator's note, he struck this compromise on the grounds that Christians of the English tongue are so accustomed to using thou in their prayers that you would sound odd. Needless to say, however, most Christians of the English tongue now find thou rather than you as the odd choice. Not only have the private habits of prayer changed, but even biblical translations and church services have for the most part adapted to modern usage. Further complicating this convention is that Augustine himself, as Sheed concedes, knew nothing of thou as a term reserved for religious use. Latin authors used tu when addressing a single person, be it maid, master, or maker, and vos when addressing two or more individuals. Why then, in the 21st century, should thou be retained as a valid component in a translation of the Confessions? There are, in my opinion, 3 reasons. First, a well-placed thou is beautiful. Even to the modern ear, it retains a sonorous and solemn ring, and its archaic quality ironically gives it a hint of the timeless.